Hey guys, thanks for joining us for this second episode in Season 3 of Good Questions with Cameron Dole. Special guests on this episode include actress Charlene Amoia. We'll also visit with former Pittsburgh Steeler and host of the Believe in Clemson podcast, Levon Kirkland. We'll also visit with our good friend, movie producer Daemon Hillin, and former NFL lineman, host of the Believe in the Chiefs podcast, Joe Valerio. Of course, if you would, please take the time to subscribe, comment, leave some feedback, check out the shop, and of course, share with your friends. Now, a new poll found that the happiest married couples kiss at least twice a day, say I love you around 10 times a week, and have 2 major arguments a month. Now, people were asked to name the top signs of a happy marriage and see if you agree with this top 10. Number 1, spending lots of quality time together. Number 2, taking care of each other when you're sick. Number 3, feeling like you can be yourself with them. Number 4, encouraging them to pursue their own hobbies and interests. Number 6, you let them see you at your best and worst. Number 6, cuddling. Number 7, being respectful to them in front of other people. Number 8, making regular plans together. Number 9, being proud of their achievements. And number 10, being silly with each other. Got a brand new series we're going to talk about from PureFlix. We've got Charlene Amoia on with us today. And first off, Charlene, thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, Charlene, tell us the new series just available now is Sons of Thunder Redemption. Tell us about how this one was first approached to you and how excited you are to have it out there right now.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, it just got released a few weeks ago and 3 episodes are out right now. We got another 3 that will air in consecutive weeks. I had originally just gotten an appointment to audition for it and they gave me a scene from the pilot episode and from the 4th episode. And, I had to bang them out. It was one of those days where I got 5 auditions. And so I had no time to really look into any of them. I just had to bang them out. And that was the one that came through. So I was grateful to get a job and come to find out we were shooting all of them on this beautiful ranch a little bit up north from LA. And I would be with horses and all these in a beautiful setting and all these animals. And so it was very much like the ambience of a dream job. And the show is about second chances, really. My ex-fiance was in a motorcycle gang and there was betrayal and hurts between us. And he went off to prison and kind of came out a new man and came back to make amends and put out some good in the world.
And to be involved, I know I've dealt with PureFlix before, and to not only entertain people, but also do it with a message as well. I mean, how cool is it to be a part of a project like that?
Yeah, I think it inspires and uplifts, and knowing that going into it, I really wanted my character to go on an emotional journey. So she started off very bitter and angry and not open. And throughout the series, she undergoes a lot of change as well through forgiveness.
During the pandemic, was this was after the pandemic when the filming and all that was going on for you?
Yeah. We had to do COVID testing every other day and wear masks and face shields throughout the whole thing. So it was I had previously, right before shooting this, done a Disney Plus show in Atlanta, which was my first job during the pandemic. And so everybody seems to be very conscious and aware of masking and trying to take care of each other.
Now, how does it make it different approaching a character in a new role now that the pandemic, I mean, how has that changed things for you? Now
that during the pandemic or just as a whole?
As a result of the pandemic and as a whole, I guess.
Oh, okay. I don't think that the pandemic changed much, other than I will say, I did an indie film recently, and my husband, my character's husband, didn't want to have kissing, like, like a little peck or anything like that. So I think that is something that's changed, where people are a little bit more cautious. They have children at home, and that is changing in scripts and in some of the sets, but not all of them. And as far as approaching a character, I don't do it any different than I would normally. I build the relationship, so I create memories of falling in love with them, the past, the history, the good stuff, and then also the pain. So just finding the heart of the character.
Now, where did you know that you had something that you needed to be on the stage, on the screen? When did you know in your life that that acting was going to be your thing?
When I was a little kid, for some reason, I wanted to be on Star Search, but it wasn't like I had any kind of talent. I was just like, we watched it and I wanted to be on it. And so
yes.
And so I would organize my friends to like try to come up with a dance routine. And I just remember very young, being very driven, like, no, we got it. Like, and we weren't dancers even, other than we'd have like some goof off dance competitions. It's not like we were trained. So I had the drive to do something, but I never, other than that, I never really thought about acting or pursued it until when I was in high school. My dad had a girl that worked for him that was modeling, and she signed, she inadvertently got me signed with her agent, and then her agent sent me an audition, and it was on my first audition that I felt like something special. I was like, oh, that was an experience that is really hitting me in a certain way that I want to follow up on that.
Now, do you find it any easier today to see yourself on screen? I know this is something I've talked with actors and actresses. Do you still struggle seeing yourself?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's awful. I mean, you're also doing the same thing. I think sometimes you see, when you talk to people, you don't really see any funny faces you're making, or you don't see the wrinkles or whatever weird is happening there. But when it's on a huge screen in front of you, you can't help but pick yourself apart.
Now, is there any one role that you really connected to that you've played so far?
Oh, I try to find often when I approach a role, I'll ask myself, why is this role in my life at this time? So I find some sort of connectivity. And there was a role that I did a couple years ago on the drama The Resident, the Fox TV show. And it was interesting because my character's name was Bobby, which is an interesting, it's not a common name for a female. And my mother's name was Bobby. And my mother had died a few years ago. And, through the, grief and the heartbrokenness of it all, when I got this role, I just felt like there was something connected. And in this, my character basically got shot in the heart. And I felt like I related to the heartbrokenness and being shot in the heart. And I was in the operating room, and they had to do a purse suture, which is basically they close the hole in your heart. And I felt like there was something really allegorical about that for me. The time dealing with the heartbreak, and having my mom's namesake, and having the hole in my heart kind of sutured together, that felt like there was a shift into healing and my heart being whole again. And I felt that in my life. It was an interesting thing as I was approaching it and asking myself the whys, and the before and after of shooting that. I felt like there's something metaphorical, symbolic, or ethereal about this, like something spiritual about this experience that was unique.
Now, how many times do you see where life is imitated in the work that you're doing as well?
Yeah, I think, we humans, we're more the same than we are different. And it's important to remember that with all the polarization that's going on in the world, because the human experience is filled with love, and it's filled with heartbreak and hurts, and there's always a way to connect into whoever you're playing.
Now, for you, what did you learn about yourself over this pandemic? The ups and downs, the no jobs for a little while. What did you learn most about yourself in that time?
Out of battery.
Oh, was that mine or yours?
It was not mine.
That was okay. You heard that too. Sorry. Okay. Well, it looks like I still have battery, so we'll let you know if something changes. Actually, I'm going to undo my speaker. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. All right, great. So the thing, I guess, well, when the pandemic first happened, I realized that I didn't have to be in LA, and I decided to move to Vancouver, Canada, just for a change. And I basically gave away my whole apartment to get out of there really quick and moved up to Canada and spent 3 months hiking around and just exploring nature and people again, and getting to know new people, and just that I really appreciated the break and the slowdown that the pandemic made us all address. We were all like, if we're all moving at a certain speed, suddenly everything's at a stop. And during that time, I was able to take more time to do some other things that I loved, and my life really changed in lots of ways that were positive with the slowdown. So I think there was certainly silver linings that came along with it.
Now, did it renew your love for the work? Did it maybe reinvigorate that passion as well when you had the opportunity to get back to work?
Yeah. That first show, doing that Disney show, I was really excited to be back on the job. I always have love for it, and this business and the amount of time you actually get to do it, there's always the ups and downs and at times where you're not working. So it's easy to appreciate it anytime a gig comes in.
That's right. Now, again, the new series available now, Sons of Thunder. I want to make sure and let our listeners know, Charlene, where they can find more about the show, about everything you've got going social media wise as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, the show is on PureFlix. We've got 3 episodes already out, and the 4th will be released tomorrow. I'm on Instagram at Charlene.Amoia, and I'm also on Facebook if anybody wants to stay in touch.
Well, Charlene, it has been a true privilege to have the chance to visit with you today, and we made it in spite of the snowfall. It's a little cold in my garage today, I'm just going to say.
Oh, I love your background. It looks great.
After we stop recording, I'll show you the true background.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for having me. It's great talking to you.
My favorite part of this poll is when you break it down for men and women, because the answers are not the same. A big survey for Valentine's Day looked at the top gifts that we'd like to receive this year, and number 1 overall is a card. 36% of women and 30% of men would like to get one. Now, things get a little different after that first one, though. The top things that women want this year are a card, flowers, chocolates or candy, a nice dinner out, and jewelry. And the top things that men want are a card, a nice dinner out, sexual favors, chocolates or candy, and in 5th place is nothing. 21% of men said they'd love to get nothing for Valentine's Day this year. Only 14% of women say the same. Now, women are also more than twice as likely to want their chores and work around the house done for them as a gift. And men are almost twice as likely to be hoping for sex. 22% of guys want it compared to 12% of women. A few more gifts that ranked high overall were a nice meal at home, electronics, clothing or lingerie, and wine or liquor. He's the host of the Believe in Clemson Football on the Believe Podcast Network, former NFL linebacker and friend of the show as well, Levon Kirkland, with us today. And Levon, thank you so much for your time, brother.
Oh, man, thank you for having me. I really appreciate that.
Now, Levon, tell us, what is the most intriguing point for the upcoming Super Bowl this Sunday? What is it that has you the most intrigued about the matchup?
Well, I just wonder how the Cincinnati Bengals are going to play against the Rams defensive line with Von Miller. With Donald, you kind of wonder, are they going to be able to just kind of sit back and do the routes that they normally do? That's going to be the intriguing thing. How will they handle if Ramsey is on T. Higgins and they double team Chase? The adjustments that I think the Cincinnati offense has to make against this defense is the intriguing part to this contest.
What do you have to say about the Bengal fans having their opportunity? I mean, I know you've had to hear some hooting and hollering over the years from the Bengal fans. To see them in a Super Bowl, what do you got to say to those fans who've been waiting so long?
Well, they're going to have to win it. It's kind of like what I told the Georgia fans, talk to me when you win a national championship. They won a national championship. So I guess the same thing would go for the Cincinnati Bengals. Talk to me when you win one. But you can't take away from their excitement. It's been a long, suffering road for those guys, not being able to even sniff the divisional championship or their own, I guess, little conference championship. So for them to be at this point, at this moment, it's great for them. I'm sure that all those people are on a high. I'm sure that the Super Bowl parties are going to be nuts in Cincinnati, Ohio. So you got to tip your hat to them, and you got to, you got to wish them the best, but they still got to win one first.
And Levon, what do you say about this 2022 season as we approach the Super Bowl? What is your big takeaway from the season? What touched you, if you will?
I think the parity in the league is stronger than I thought it was coming this year. You kind of thought there were going to be some dominant teams like your Kansas Cities, like your Tampa Bays. But, man, this playoff really showed you that a lot of the teams were closer than you thought, and that every team had an opportunity to win the Super Bowl. I mean, Green Bay was supposed to be a team that at least got to the Super Bowl correctly,
right?
But they didn't. They lost to San Francisco. That at one time, San Francisco was struggling. Nobody, I don't care who it is, nobody saw Cincinnati going into the Super Bowl. I don't care who you are. You didn't see that happening. So I think just the games were incredible. The playoff games were incredible, and it shows that the parity is there. And that's why I think the NFL is probably the most watched sports in the United States, because you never really know. There's no dynasties anymore. And your team has the opportunity with the right changes to be in that Super Bowl, just like Cincinnati.
Levon, seeing the way these last couple of years have broken down for everybody, and how do you see the game changing for the fans as well these last couple of years?
Well, I mean, you look at it, I think the physicality of the game has really left the game. It's almost impossible to play defense anymore, because at one point in time, I remember the middle of the field was all the defense. You come in the middle of the field, you're going to get punished. Nowadays, it's really not. So wide receivers are not afraid to come across the middles. I said middles. And quarterbacks are not afraid to just tuck it and run, because they know they can just slide and they're going to be okay. So I think what has happened is they've taken the physicality out of the game. And for a defensive player, and for, say, a fan base like the Pittsburgh Steelers, you're not going to get the defenses that you are normally used to seeing. It's just not going to happen. And I think that it's really the quarterback's responsibility not to get his receivers hurt. Like, a lot of times, it's those quarterbacks' fault that those receivers get the hits that they get. It's not just the defense, it's the quarterback. So a lot of times those quarterbacks, if you look at some games, it's really the quarterback's fault. Why that receiver is hanging out to dry. So I think they're going to have to let some of the physicality come back in the game, because it's not – you're going to get what you kind of saw in the Pro Bowl. Not probably as bad, but you're going to get what you saw in the Pro Bowl, which is hard to look at football. And you don't ever want to get to that point.
And talking about having to play softer, how much different is the game today as opposed to the game in the NFL when you were suiting up, Levon?
Well, the game it wasn't as spread out when I played. It was more so in the box. Quarterbacks didn't really get in shotgun unless it was 2 minutes left in the game. Guys were still operating behind center a little bit. And the game was just a little bit more tussle, a little bit more man-to-man, especially when you're talking about the front seven versus the offensive line. Today is not that way. They kind of spread it out a little bit. It's more of, pitch and catch in a lot of ways. You can't really, as a defensive player, you can't really send a message to the quarterback or the wide receiver. Back when I played, back in the olden days, the quarterback can throw the ball. You still can send him a message by hitting him a little late and letting him know that, hey, regardless if you throw the ball, we're still going to hit you. Nowadays, you can't do that. So the quarterback is pretty confident that he's probably not going to get hit. And if he does get hit, it's going to really cost the defense a penalty here and a penalty there. So I think really it's not as much in the box. It's not as physical. And as a defender, you can't really send a message to the offensive team at all. So that's what I see.
Now, looking ahead to Sunday, I'm not going to ask you for necessarily your personal pick on the game. I don't like to do that this early. But what do you see each team having to do to pull off the victory?
Wow, like I said, I think that Cincinnati may have to do some adjustments right off the bat. I don't know if they can go with, Joe Burrow just dropping back and just throwing the ball. The offensive line probably will play better than they played against Tennessee, but this Ram team can really rush the passer. And you don't want to put your quarterback in harm's way. So how do you get yards and how do you drive down the field without dropping back, waiting for these patterns to get open? I think Cincinnati has to really, on offense, they're going to have to really solve that problem. And I think for the Rams, they can't underestimate what Cincinnati does on defense. If they underestimate what Cincinnati does, they're going to be in trouble too, because those guys, they got guys who can rush the passer as well. And they've been playing really solid defense. So I really think that the offenses have to make the adjustments early in offense. They're going to have to do some things differently that they haven't shown on film, and they're going to have to really not turn the ball over either.
Well, Levon, I always want to make sure and let our listeners know where they can keep up with your podcast, social media, and everything as well, friend.
Well, yeah. As far as my podcast, Believe in Clemson Football with Levon Kirkland, you can catch us on the Believe Network. I think we're on Spotify. If you want to catch me on Twitter, I think it's Levon Kirkland _44, something like that. Other than that, you can just catch me by my name, Levon Kirkland, on Facebook, Instagram. I'm all on there.
There you go. Well, Levon, again, thank you so much for your time today. Looking forward to a great Super Bowl weekend and catching up again real soon.
All right, man. I like the hairstyle that you got. Real nice.
I work real hard on it.
Yes, indeed.
Now, the whole heightened engagement ring in your food thing has always seemed like a great way to chip a tooth. But if you're planning something like that for Valentine's Day, this list is for you. Someone asked 2,000 Americans to name the best foods to hide a ring in, and pizza got the most votes. Now, the pizza chain Hungry Howie's commissioned the study, so that's probably why. But I'm not sure the rest of the list is much better. Number 1, pizza. Number 2, salad. Number 3, a burger or sandwich. Seems risky. Number 4, soup. But what if they don't finish it and the ring stays at the bottom? And number 5, seafood. Because a ring that smells like fish, ever so romantic, am I right? Now the rest of the top 10 are pasta, sushi, pork, steak, and lamb chops. Now the poll found the best places to propose are during a romantic dinner or on a trip. But 36% also think proposing at someone else's wedding is a good idea. Now, 58% of people who've been engaged admitted that they regret how their proposal went down, and 45% wish they had a do-over. Always great to have friends of the show back on with us. We've got producer and, well, he's got more slashes than we realized before. We've got Daemon Hillin with us today, and Daemon, good to visit with you, my friend.
Hey, I really appreciate you having me again. It's always a pleasure.
Now, Daemon, always want to talk about the latest project, the Long Night. Where did this come from for you, and what did you learn since last time we visited that you applied to this project as well?
Wow. Okay. So the Long Night actually was brought to me by my mentor. So this was one of those projects that is a full circle.
Wow.
From the beginning of my career to, where I'm at today. I was blessed to work with the gentleman who brought me into the industry and taught me and put me on my path. So his name's Ryan R. Johnson. And, we were talking one day and he said, "Hey, I have this script. I think that, do you want to come and produce it with me?" And at that point, I said, let me take a look at it. I read it and it was totally up my alley. I just kind of really wanted to go shoot a horror film, supernatural in the South. It has some really good sales points to it from a business standpoint for me. So it was really a no-brainer. And that's how it all came into fruition.
Now, what did you learn during pandemic times that you had to apply this time around?
Well, so it's more like, what did I learn on this movie that prepared me for the pandemic periods? Because we actually shot this movie before. This is a movie that has been in post for years. It was a very hard movie. Outside of, as hard as movies get, this takes the cake. So let me give you a little backstory. We started this film and we put this movie into production. We have a whole crew in South Carolina in the Charleston area, like 45 minutes out. We have a very well-known actress playing the lead. We have a different director, not the director, Rich Ragsdale. And the script was about witches. So all of a sudden, we're getting ready to shoot a week out, and then boom, scheduling issues, and we lose everything except the crew that we have on the ground. So panic mode for all the producers. There was like three, there's 4 producers on this, but the 3 that were like day to day was myself, Vasily Bernhardt, and Ryan R. Johnson. So when this happened, we were, at this point pulling our hair out because an enormous amount of money had already been spent, like too much money has already been spent on an indie film already. So we put our heads together and, I had previously come off of Ghost House that did very well overseas and had a great release here. And I recommended Rich Ragsdale. Ryan Johnson knows Rich Ragsdale very well. So I actually met Rich Ragsdale through Ryan Johnson. So when I brought Rich up, it was an immediate like, oh, that's a great idea. Vasily was on board. And then it was immediately, let's get Rich Ragsdale to, Charleston. I would call him up. And then, of course, a director, an auteur like Rich, he's going to have his own creative everything. So he's going to want all the small details in the script to be to his liking. Visually, he needs his DP. So there's all these factors involved. We're restarting, but we're already there and spending. So it was very difficult. Rich came in. And, one of the first things we said to Rich was, where's Scout? Because, we were put in a situation, we needed an actor that can not only learn a whole entire script in a week or 2 weeks, but also have a killer performance, not get mad at us as producers because we're not giving them any time, but come in as a team player. We don't want to get, you get a lot from an actor if they don't have the time, the prep and everything like that. So we really were asking ourselves, who can do this? And we knew Scout could, right? Scout was like, she's phenomenal. So Scout was available. We brought her out immediately. And then our wonderful casting directors recommend Nolan Gerard Funk. So we went and we brought him in as well. And then it was literally writing and shooting. We were writing a script, we'll do like 10, 15 pages. We start shooting. Then we have a writer in the background writing. And this was our schedule. And it was so crazy. It was hard on the art department and everybody like just trying to catch up to what are we making? So yeah, it was one heck of a teamwork style symphony on this one.
Now, when you talked about all the challenges of it, when you get all that wrapped up and you finally have the product available now, I mean, what kind of a feeling does it give you when you finally have that thing out there for folks to check out?
So much pride, because the movie turned out so well, and I'm so proud of it, from the way that the story was told, to the actors' performances, to even the composition of the music, just the look, the color. I couldn't be more excited and more happy to be part of this movie that was so troubling, but is now so like I was part of that, it's so fulfilling. It's so fulfilling.
Now, we talked about you had something in your past that we've never delved into. I didn't know until your people gave it up on you. I'm just telling you. But
Okay.
now, how did the world of fashion? How did you get started into that, and how did you transition from that into what you're doing today?
Sure. Okay. So fashion started for me around 14, 15 years old. And it was literally it was fluke. I was asked to be in it was a cheerleading catalog.
All right.
Right. For cheerleaders. And so the only thing I asked was, does it get me out of school? And are there girls there?
That's the important stuff.
I was in an all guys boarding school at the time. So when I got offered a chance to get out of school for a day or two and then see a bunch of beautiful girls, I was like, I'm in. Right. And then from there, my mom kind of took this more seriously than I did. I was just more about, I get to miss school, because I didn't want to go to school anyways. I was not that kid. So my mom got me an agent, and then I just ended up booking job after job. And then all of a sudden I get an offer to go to Italy with one of the biggest modeling agencies in Italy and do the shows. And, just really, I spent a year in Italy, and then I spent a year in Germany, and then a year in Greece, and then 3 years in Tokyo, Japan.
Wow. And
then I did New York too, and then came back and decided I don't want to do this. I was like, it was just, I wanted to do something more with I wanted to create, but not just because I'm looking a certain way and I'm not eating any food, but because I wanted to do something creative with storytelling and business. I wanted to blend the two together. Right. So how could I do that? And that's what put my mind into this track, started looking for that kind of job. Cause I didn't know, I don't have a Hollywood family, and I didn't have a Hollywood background, and we were not very wealthy people. My family was teachers. My dad was a teacher and my mom worked for the school district. So, I wasn't some rich kid that came into town and just throwing a bunch of money at movies.
Right.
I had to figure it out. Right. I had to bartend. I had to clean tables and bathrooms and do all this stuff while I was actually working for Ryan R. Johnson, the gentleman that, was my mentor. And that's what I was doing. So it went from fashion real estate being the high-end parties and this and glamorous to bartending and waiting tables and then working at a film company, during the day and bartending at night.
Now, as you look back and you think on those moments, how much does that make you appreciate having a release out there and having people that believe in you, that sign on to be a part of your ventures as well?
Yeah. You know what? I vividly remember like barely having enough money for food. Like I would eat cans of chili just straight out of the can. So, being able to do what I love to do, I literally there's nothing I'd rather do in my life than produce movies. I'm not a director. I'm not an actor. I'm a producer. And I've never been happier than I am doing what I do. So I'm so grateful and I'm so blessed for, what is in my life.
Now, what's the next big project? I know you've got several things in the pipeline real quick too.
Yeah. So, we're turning over our shark film right now that we talked about last time with Trace Adkins. That's getting really close to, getting released. I just finished a World War II movie in Thailand.
Wow.
We did that over the Christmas break. That was a fun one. That had Casper Van Dien and Louis Mandylor and Jeff Fahey in it. And phenomenal, directed by Brandon Slagle. And then now we're getting ready. There's a big one coming up. I don't want to say who's in it right now, but you're gonna be like, whoa! It's phenomenal. We'll shoot it on the East Coast. I can't wait to talk to you about it because it's gonna blow your mind.
Well, I'm giddy with anticipation myself.
Right on.
Now, Daemon, if folks want to check out the new film, want to check out everything you've got going social media wise as well, where's the best place for both of those, if you will?
Sure. The movie The Long Night on iTunes right now is probably the best place to check it out. It's also in select theaters. Or you could go to Wellgo USA. That's our distributor, and it's on their website. For myself, my Instagram handle is Daemon Hillin. So those are the two spots, or HillinEntertainment.com.
That's good stuff. Well, again, be sure and check out the film The Long Night. And I don't know, Google his name. You might find some of those some of those old photos from back in the day, right?
Killing me right now.
Well, Daemon, brother, it's always good to see you, man. I know it's taken a couple of times to make this happen this time around, but appreciate you always being so thoughtful, and look forward to catching up. Excited to talk next time around, brother.
Likewise, brother. You have a great day, okay? Thanks for the time.
Well, this guy had a more eventful weekend than the rest of us. 38-year-old Bradford Weitzel was at a bar in Port St. Lucie, Florida on Friday and left after midnight, but couldn't find his car. So he did the only logical thing and stole someone else's car to go drive around and look for his. Now, the night was really just getting started, though. Now, he ended up stopping the stolen car on a set of train tracks. Now, he claims that it died on him, which seems unlikely. Now, the car then ended up getting hit by that train while Bradford was running away, and the train flung the car into the side of a nearby house, but luckily, the people asleep inside were not injured. Now, Bradford found a nearby fruit stand after that, vandalized it for some reason, and then tried to steal a forklift he found, but someone had called the cops by that point. When they showed up, Bradford tried to flag them down like he was in trouble and told them that he needed help finding his car. But then he explained everything else he'd been up to that night, so they arrested him instead. Now he is facing a bunch of charges, including counts for grand theft auto and criminal mischief. He is host of the Believe in the Chiefs on the Believe Podcast Network. Former offensive lineman with the Chiefs, makes sense. We've got Joe Valerio with us today. And Joe, first off, thank you so much for taking the time, brother.
Oh my gosh, Cameron, great to join you in Super Bowl week. And it's been an amazing playoff run, I think, for NFL fans. Of course, there's always going to be a sad group of fans that, their team isn't journeying on in this crazy playoff race. But I'll tell you, it's been fantastic as an objective football fan of anybody who loves the NFL. I don't even know if you need to be an NFL fan to have enjoyed these last 6 games. The drama, every game's been a walk-off basically. So, how could you not be excited about, what's coming now with the culmination of the season and the Super Bowl? So, I think the 2 teams that are there are very deserving, and it's going to be an interesting game. It's two very different types of football teams. So been exciting, been a great year.
Now, Cincinnati got some youth at the quarterback position, and if you were to talk to the Bengals, what would your advice be leading up to Super Bowl Sunday?
Well, I mean, I knew what they needed to do against the Chiefs. I felt like, well, number one, what they did is they hung in there, right? I mean, they've got to hang in there, just like they did against Kansas City. Things might not go well for Cincinnati in the first part of the season, first part of the game, and it didn't go well for them against the Chiefs. But I think the game that Joe Burrow played against the Chiefs, bringing that Bengals team on that journey, I feel like it was a microcosm of his life story as a football player, right? Getting rejected, getting, booed, leaving that school, going to another school, getting hurt, dealing with his injury, and wins the Heisman, wins a national championship. Like that game was like all that rolled into one. Injuries happening for the Bengals. They're not playing well. They're losing. It didn't look good, Cameron, for the Bengals. You got to be honest. I mean, I know, of course, I'm a Chiefs homer, right? Because I cover the Chiefs. I played for the Chiefs. But I just was feeling really, really good about what the Chiefs were doing in that first half. And what did the Bengals do? Hung around. They hung around the rim. That old basketball phrase. They just hung around the rim. And, good things happen. You get rebounds, you get dunks, and they just hung in there. And I think that's what they're going to have to. It was a long answer to a short question, but I think that's what they're going to have to do against this team, because if they give up hope to this Rams team is a smothering team, and they're going to smother the Bengals on defense. And quite frankly, I think the Rams offense is a smothering offense. And I think they're going to eat up clock. They're going to game manage down the field. They're going to try to keep Burrow off the field. And, Joe Burrow just can't lose heart, right? He's got to keep plugging away. He's got to keep going, because if he loses heart, the Chiefs, he loses heart in that Chiefs game. The Chiefs go on and win 45-7.
Right.
But he didn't. And I think that permeates a team. That sends a message when you don't give up like that. That sent a message to every single Bengal last week. When they lost or when they beat the Chiefs, is that, what, you don't give up. When it looks bad, you just keep playing. And, I just think that's what they're going to have to do, because Cameron, I got to be honest, they're going to run into a little bit of a buzzsaw.
Right.
This Rams team is this. They were built for this game. This is what that organization did over the course of, and they put that final piece in place with Stafford. And, I think they've got all the pieces to, on paper. Again, we don't play games on paper, right? And if we did, be a lot healthy. I'd be a lot. My knees would feel a lot better these days. But it just on paper that they're going to, there's a reason why they're almost a touchdown favorite, which I think that line's a little light. If, I think the Rams, if they start running away with it, it could get worse.
Now, did you immediately buy in once they got Stafford? Did you immediately buy in that, they were Super Bowl favorites for the Rams at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, I think I was, because I just felt like they were piecing this thing together. And, you had to be watching it closely, right? Like each time they would put in a new piece, you're like, that was a good move. It's like, if you've ever been in a fantasy football draft, right? And you're watching the draft go by and you're like, that was a good pick. That was a good pick. Why didn't I think of that? And then all of a sudden the Rams are who they are, and then Stafford, and I got to give Stafford a lot of credit too. Here's a guy who played 13 years, right, in Detroit. No offense to that organization, but they have been bad. And they got even worse when he left. So it kind of shows you what he was doing, propping up that organization with his play. And I'll tell you, I got to be honest, Cameron, I don't know this for a fact, so I am making some conjecture here, but I have to imagine in those 13 years, Matt Stafford had a chance to leave. Now, granted, they paid him well, and he made great money and he made a great living, and his kids don't have to work probably. But like, he had a chance. He had a chance, and he never did. He hung in there. He just like Joe Burrow, who's a hang in there kind of a guy. I think Matt Stafford's a hang in there kind of guy, and so I like him for that fact. Whether you like his play style or if you like him as a person, like all that stuff aside, he hung in there. And I think he's getting his just desserts now, being in, the Super Bowl, representing the NFC Championship Rams as the quarterback. And I give him a lot of credit for that. So that's why I think it's going to be a really interesting Super Bowl with these two quarterbacks. This isn't some of the last gunslinging games that we saw, right? Especially in the AFC. It's a gunsling. It was like the old Wild West, right? Burrow, Josh Allen, Derek Carr, Patrick Mahomes, of course, right? How could I forget Patrick? And you've got, all these gunslinging QBs whipping the ball around. Now you kind of have, this is a little bit of the old wily vet versus the young gun. So I'm going to be anxious to see how this, how this all plays out and how they react to each other in the way that they're each playing.
And you mentioned him, so covering the Chiefs as well. What have you seen on the one-on-one side of Patrick since he's come into the league to where he is today?
Oh, he's such a talent. I mean, he's got such skills. The one way that I describe Patrick in my own terms is forget the cannon arm, the happy feet, his ability, from having played basketball and baseball and done all those things to generate like real well-rounded athleticism. The one thing I think Patrick has that really super ultra high performing athletes have is he's able to see everything in slow motion. Granted, sometimes when he struggles, it's not because of that. He struggles because I think he puts too much pressure on himself and he forces things. But his pure play and the way that he plays the game of football, I saw this. It's gonna be a bizarre analogy. You're like, what is this guy talking about? But I saw this show on it was like Nat Geo or something, like National Geographic, and it was about insects and how insects their metabolisms are so high that everything in the world around them is happening in slow motion. It's kind of like why it's really hard to kill a fly, right? When it's on your picnic table, because, they see things their metabolisms are so quick that when you try to swat them, that they see it coming from a mile away. That's kind of how I describe Patrick Mahomes. He just, everything around him is happening in slow motion. And he's able to see things that we might not see as sort of normal human beings. When a wide receiver is breaking away just at the right time, or when he sees the pocket collapsing around him and how he's able to step up and find the pocket inside the pocket. He just has an uncanny ability to slow everything down. I mean, a perfect physical example of it, Cameron, was the trainer, Rich Burkholdt, was I guess they were talking about how they have the body, biometric stuff on that they're wearing now, right? Heart rate. I think some teams have sensors in their helmets to measure impact and things like that. Well, apparently, the story goes, and what they've been reporting is that his heart rate from the biometric screening was higher on the sideline when he was watching Josh Allen go down the field and score that last touchdown before Patrick got the 13 seconds than it was when he was actually in the huddle ready to call the first play of that series. Wow. His heart rate was higher on the sideline than it was in the huddle. Now, granted, when you start running, your heart rate's going to go up, so you can't use that. Right. But that to me just kind of says it all, that the physical manifestation of his athletic ability was that he could slow everything down, calmly call that play. He knew he only had the two plays, right? And he made it happen. So that's my best way to describe Patrick. I got on a soapbox there, but I think that's what makes him kind of special. Now, is he human? Of course, we saw that. We saw what happened in the second half of that game, and I feel really bad that that the Chiefs didn't override him and kick that field goal at the end of the half, because I think players are funny, and the psychology of being out there on the field in a high pressure situation like that, even for a guy like Patrick Mahomes, I think not being able to punch that in the end zone and not coming away with some points at the end of that half really set him on a weird path for the remainder of that game. And whether it took away his swagger or his confidence or something, it definitely did something. And so you have to be careful when you're a coach that you don't let your players get in those situations, right? I think Andy possibly, and here I am, I'm no head coach of an NFL team, but I'll throw my opinion out there. I think he should have put his foot down and said, Patrick, we're kicking the field goal. We come away with the 3 points, go get some Gatorade, come out second half, guns ablazing, and we'll be fine. I think that was probably the biggest mistake that they made in that game.
Now, how hard is it to deal with a talent like Patrick? I mean, you were around with Joe Montana as well. I mean, how do you see the coaching challenge working with someone that gifted?
Oh, well, I think the biggest challenge comes from not bridling them too much, right? Not let them go, let them do their thing. And that's hard. That's hard for some coaches. Coaches have sometimes just as big of egos as the players do. And, you've got to let them have their, the opportunity. You have to empower them to be who they are. I do these things on Mondays on LinkedIn, and I do it on Twitter, and I have a YouTube channel called Lessons from the Gridiron. And I talk about, and it's funny you should bring that up, because my lesson from the Gridiron today was, leadership by example. And I think, and I said in my little message that great players, the reason they become great players because they're great leaders and they lead by example. It's not vice versa. Great leaders aren't just out there made up of, great leaders aren't made by just being a great player. And so I think what happens is with those kind of talents that you have, you understand that they got there for a reason. So, Joe Montana, he was the guy that was first one in the locker room in the morning. He was the last one to leave. And I know for a fact that Patrick is the same way. He puts the work in. So it's almost as if they make it easier for you, because when you get that good at something, you got there for a reason, and you got there because you put the work in. Because it goes even beyond natural talent for a guy like Patrick Mahomes or a guy like Joe Montana. And I think that rubs off on everybody else around them in the locker room. So I think in some ways it's really hard for coaches because they don't want to tamper down the wild talent that's there. But at the same time, they do have to understand that players like that got there for a reason, and that they've got to just kind of let them go, let them do their thing. Now, granted, if it's becoming conduct detrimental to the team, you can't, because what's the other saying is, the worst thing a good manager can do is coddle a bad employee, right? Because that's right. You got to put your foot down and say, no, this is the culture of the team, and this is how we're going to play football. And Patrick embodies that. So it's a give and take between a coach and a great player like that.
Now with Joe making it into the Super Bowl with the Bengals this year, how do they avoid ridiculous expectations of Joe in the years after this as well?
Well, that's a great question, Cameron. It's a fantastic, commentary. It is hard. It's hard to now, because we see it in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes. The fans expect the Chiefs now to be in the Super Bowl every year. It's hard. There's 31 other teams out there that are watching the film on you as a quarterback like Joe Burrow. And they don't just sit around wringing their hands and saying, oh, woe is me. The Bengals are great, or the Chiefs are great. The Bills have Josh Allen. Let's just those defensive coordinators are thinking and dreaming, spending nights and days and weekends dreaming up plans of how to stop a player like that. So the fans can't let their expectations get too high, because it's not as if the other teams aren't going to show up anymore because, Joe Burrow made the Super Bowl in the second year. Oh, well, we're done. Let's just pack it in. We'll go up in Canada and play in the CFL or something So I think what needs to happen is fans need to say, look, we're going to be this Bengals team is going to be a good team for a long time. So take a deep breath no matter what happens, and, enjoy the ride, because you've got a quarterback who knows how to win. He's won at every level, right? He won a national championship. He won the Heisman. He's now in the Super Bowl, which is the pinnacle of the NFL. So just enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. because it's, there's only one team that walks away with that Lombardi trophy, and there's only two that get to play for it every year out of 32 teams. And when you look back historically, sometimes teams go decades without getting even close. And it's not because they're not trying. So anyway, I guess my one piece of advice is enjoy the moment. Stop thinking about, it's like that progressive commercial with Dr. Rick, right? Why are we talking about leaving the game? The game hasn't even started yet. You're thinking about leaving in the third quarter. That's what fans can't do. Just enjoy the heck out of this week, the hype, enjoy the game, enjoy what the Bengals might do this offseason to surround Joe Burrow, win, lose, or draw. Well, there won't be a draw. They don't let them tie in the Super Bowl. But, win or lose, I would, if I'm a Bengals fan, enjoy the heck out of what they're going to do to try to build around him, because that's when it gets fun. Because that's the progression I've seen with the Chiefs. Now, obviously, they've been to the 4 AFC championships and the 2 Super Bowls, and they won one of them. But I'll tell you what they've done every year is they've always found that 1 or 2 pieces they've tried to put together for Patrick Mahomes, right? This year it was the offensive line, which was beautiful. It was masterfully constructed. And I was talking with some Bears fans today. They're really excited about, Ryan Poles heading up to Chicago to go up there and some of the things he's done to help build, the Kansas City Chiefs through his long tenured career. He's been there since like 2008 or 2009. Started in assistant scout or something. Really, down there on in the pecking order. And now he's general manager of one of the most storied franchises in NFL football. With the Bears. So I love it. I think it's great for Bears fans. So those are the kinds of things that the Chiefs have done. And one year it was let's shore up the receivers. What they've done with Travis Kelce, backing him up with Blake Bell and getting some tight ends in there that can fill his shoes as big as they are. I think they did a nice job of shoring up the linebacking core with some young players like Willie Gay and Nick Bolton. So the Chiefs have done a masterful job of surrounding Patrick Mahomes with a lot of talent. And that's, if I'm a Bengals fan, I'd be excited about. What are they going to do to make Joe Burrow better and keep him out on the field more by having a good line and having a good defense? And, that's what I think is going to be really exciting for them, win or lose.
Well, to pick up the win, Joe, give me what the Bengals have to do and what the Rams have to do, in your opinion.
I think, well, number one, Captain Obvious statement, the Bengals are going to have to protect Joe Burrow. They can't let happen what happened against the Titans, because I don't think they're going to be able to overcome something like that the way they did against the Titans. I felt like the Titans were, and this is going to sound like this isn't meant to be a derogatory term to the Titans organization, but I felt like they were a little bit of a paper tiger this year. There was something that when I watched them play, as many wins as they got, there was something hollow or missing about their wins. I couldn't figure it out, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And my buddy Jeff Fedotin and I did talk about it on our podcast, because we were kind of going through some playoff scenarios and what was going to happen. I wasn't really fearing the Titans, and I'm on record as saying that. Like, if you go back and look, I wasn't. Again, I think it's a fantastic organization, because if there's an organization that mirrors their head coach in toughness, it's the Titans, because Mike Vrabel he's the bomb. I think the world of him. But I just think I think if they don't protect Burrow, they're not going to be able to beat the Titans the way that they did. Or beat the Rams the way that they beat the Titans. It's just not going to happen. The Rams are too good for that. So that's my first Captain Obvious statement. Is what they're going to have to do on offense is let Joe Burrow do his thing. Give him the time he needs to extend the running game with some short passes. They're going to have to give him some time so he can get the intermediate to deeper routes working. And then to complement that, Cameron, they're going to have to see if Joe Mixon can run against this vaunted defense of theirs. They've got to try to establish something in the run game, because if they feel like they don't have to bring 8 up into the box, then they're going to sit back and with 7 guys back there and rush 4, maybe occasionally rush 3. as good as Aaron Donald is. And then the Bengals are going to be in a world of hurt because they're just going to blanket everybody. And I think they've got to establish some running game to open up the playbook for Joe Burrow and protect him. And I think that's really the key. It's not really, I don't think, rocket science on that side of the ball for the Bengals. That's what they have to do to make their mark on the Rams. You know, the Rams, they can't turn the ball over. They can't, not that they're a team that is beholden to has a lot of turnovers or that they're a turnover prone team. But in this particular game, they can't turn the ball over because you don't want to give Joe Burrow any momentum. Turnovers to me I know penalties can be big momentum swings. The interference call at the wrong time, the holding call at the wrong time, like those are real game changers. But like to me, the real momentum swings are turnovers, the pick at the wrong time, the fumbled, quarterback sack where the defensive lineman strips the QB and they pick up the ball and maybe they do a little scoop and dash or something, but like they can't do that because this team thrives on that. They're going to thrive on momentum. That's the Cinderella story of this Bengals team is they're going to need something like that to really make a play. Right. But hey, just like my dad was a professional boxer and he used to say, well, this could be a puncher's fight. And I'd be like, Dad, what does that mean? He goes, listen, I don't care if you got the champ of the world who's never lost a fight. If he's fighting a puncher, all it takes is one. and my dad used to say that always like one of the lessons he taught me about, be careful of that one punch, son. You might be winning by 100, but that one punch could knock you out and you lose. Now you lose, and, so I think the Bengals team they're punchers. And you saw that, right? You saw that with the Chiefs. They hung in there and they were, is the rope-a-dope. It was old Muhammad Ali, rope-a-dope and the rope-a-dope. And then all of a sudden, bam, they came out of nowhere. And so to me, Cameron, long answer again, I think it's turnovers that could be the doom for the Rams if they let the Bengals hang around.
And Joe, like we mentioned before, the host of the Believe in the Chiefs on the Believe Podcast Network. Also, Joe, want to give you an opportunity to let folks know where they can keep up social media. Also, your Monday motivation, where they can keep up with everything you got going, brother.
Oh, Cameron, I appreciate that. Yeah, so I have my Twitter handle is at Joe Valerio 73. I have this YouTube channel we just started called Joe Valerio Lessons from the Gridiron, and if you just did a quick Google search there, I connect it through Twitter. I tweet out some of my videos. I do them on LinkedIn. It's just like a Monday little motivation I do, lessons I learned, along the way, share some things, playing with guys like Joe Montana and Marcus Allen and, leadership lessons and, what it's like to be a part of a team and celebrating your role and things like that I've been in the corporate environment now for 25 years. So, I wake up on Monday mornings a little less sore than I used to, which is kind of nice, but still get beat around a little bit in the corporate world. So I've learned some lessons there too. But it's been a lot of fun doing that and sharing that stuff. And I love talking football. And we have our Believe in Chiefs podcast with my buddy Jeff Fedot, and just it's fun stuff just to interact with fans and hear all the things that are going on. And great to be here with you, Cameron. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been a blast.
Well, Joe, it's been a privilege. Like I mentioned before we came on, I was not a Chiefs fan. I had an appreciation for the Chiefs as a Broncos fan in my days. So it's been a privilege to visit with you, especially Super Bowl week. I appreciate you taking the time out. And Joe, hopefully we can catch up again real soon.
I would love that, Cameron. You got my contact info. Let's do it again.
Truly want to say thanks again for joining us for this second episode in Season 3 of Good Questions with Cameron Dole. If you ever have a comment, maybe a question, or anything else you'd like to know, you can hit me up on the contact page at gqwithcam.com. You can also find me on the socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook at GQWithCam. If you'd like to help out in the funding for this podcast, visit our merch store where we've got hoodies, mugs, tumblers, shirts, stickers, much more That's gqwithcam.com/shop. And if you have a special guest idea, just email me, Cameron@gqwithcam.com. We're going to let our good friend Brandon Allen play us out. Hope you guys have a great rest of your evening and get ready for Super Bowl weekend.